And to our explainer tonight, it's all about opening schools, reopening for the rest of the classes or not. That is, of course, the big issue that the Ministry of Education, together with those in the Ministry of Health, are having to grapple with. And the thing to remember with this is it is a medical problem. It's having a major effect on schools and education in the country. Now, many of you have been asking a number of questions. When will the other schools resume? When the other classes resume? And indeed, what will the new academic calendar look like? Will we always do our final exams in the month of March? Are your children safer at school or at home? And why did they pick the 3 classes? Also, how does Kenya compare to other countries like Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania? And of course, when we look further afield in Europe with some of those countries that are continuing to experience a second wave. Well, here's some of the considerations that the Ministry of Health has to look at. Well, first of all, because we stated this is a medical problem, they are first of all looking at the behavior of the infection curve. Now, you know this from the Ministry of Health and the World Health Organization, taking a look at that infectivity rate. Is it at 5% or below? And remember, that's not the only one. There's a raft of 5 of those guidelines that the WHO has put together. So they take a look at this to determine whether it is safe for schools. The other thing they will be taking a look at is testing these guidelines that have been put in place to contain the spread of COVID-19. And they will be testing to see whether these children who are already in school right now from the 3 classes, that's grade 4, class 8 and form 4, and teaching and non-teaching staff who are in there, as to whether they can practice social distancing, hand washing and the wearing of masks. We already had the CS Magoha saying social distancing might certainly be a challenge. So they'll be taking a look at to see how they behave in this setting. And remember, you want to test this with a smaller group and then perhaps start to open up to more students as you continue to monitor the cases on the go. Also, now that they've got the 3 classes who, remember, are different ages, it'll be interesting, I think, for them to monitor just how these different age groups are responding to some of these guidelines. You have those younger ones in grade 4, then you have class 8, and you've got form 4 as well. And don't forget, of course, there is also those in tertiary educations who are already there. So they will be taking a look at monitoring that. Some of the things like wearing masks, some of the decisions you've seen in some schools here, even in Uganda as well, when to wear which masks. I've seen some of the regulations in schools saying the children can wear masks when they're out in the field playing and having, going to have lunch, and then put on the face shields when they're in the classrooms. All right. Now, they will also be, of course, as you know, this has already happened. They're prioritizing the candidate classes. Why? Because they are in the process of a transition to ensure that smooth transition. Also, the question of why grade 4? Remember, those are the pioneer classes of CBC, and that is something they continue to monitor. Remember, moving from one curriculum to another is certainly something that is challenging, and so they want to be able to monitor these ones. They will actually be the highest monitored students all the way up until grade 12 when they are done with their schools. Now, you do know how this is going to happen, at least so far for Form 4 and Class 8, that they're going to be doing their exams in March. And now I'll talk about regularizing the academic calendar in just a moment, because that is one of the things also under consideration if everything goes according to plan. Now, another thing that education officials are telling me that is important to consider is the Kenyan context. Many are asking, so why can't we do what they're doing in Uganda, in Rwanda? Oh, take a look at also what's happening in countries like France and in the UK, where they're experiencing a second wave. Well, it is important for us to take a look at the Kenyan context and have solutions for this country. So, for example, in the region, Kenya has the highest enrollment rates, also having the highest per capita boarding schools. As you know, boarding schools, dormitories where you have closed spaces, these are potential areas where COVID can spread pretty fast. And so many of the decisions that will be made have to be Kenyan context specific. That is important. Now, when you talk about whether children are safer at home and at school, well, we've seen many issues that have come up. Teenage pregnancies, sexual abuse of children. Many of the girls are being married off early. And then there is the other thing about safety of children at the schools. And there is the counter argument that, listen, parents are going out, they're going to restaurants, they're going to bars, they're going to church, they're even attending those political rallies you see, which have hundreds and possibly thousands of people, and then they come back home to the same children, possibly exposing them. So would there be a big difference between what is happening at home and at school? Those are some of the questions they're having to think about. Other issues that you've seen, and we've been reporting on that, is children with comorbidities. We're seeing increasingly young children with diseases like sickle cell, anemia, diabetes, even cancer. So the Ministry of Health is working towards that and saying, you know, what happens? What happens to teachers who are older and have comorbidities as well? So those are some of the things to consider. Now, about regularizing the school or academic calendar. What happens? Right now, we know we're in term 2. We'll have term 3 in January of next year. But so are we going to continue to see exams happening in March? Well, what I'm told is this was the plan and remains so, hoping that everything stays positive, everything stays equal, and we continue to make great strides in flattening the curve, is that hopefully this is what they wanted. All of the students would then join in, do their second term this year, their third term next year in January, and then start their first term of the 2021 academic year in May. And that would mean accelerated learning for the students, which would be a very short holiday, probably 1 week, to then have them do the final exam in November, December. So there is the possibility that in 2021 you could have 2 national exams in March and again in December, and then hopefully regularize us, get us back to normal of what we know in January 2022, considering there's an election that year in August. So wanting to make sure that all of these things stay equal. But here's another thing you might expect. There would definitely or most likely be an uptick in the numbers of COVID-19, as happens every time you ease some of the restrictions. And so that is something to be expected, and those are some of the numbers they will be taking a look at to see what is happening before they consider reopening for all of the other students. So as you can see, no easy solutions, and they're guided, I understand, at the Ministry of Education by 7 guiding principles, some of which we have elucidated here on the Explainer tonight. No easy solutions for the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Health, and all other stakeholders who are in there. That, ladies and gentlemen, is my Explainer for you tonight.